So we're ready to cut this out. The problem is that it's drawn on the flat side and we need it across to the other side. So I'm going to start with a handheld jigsaw and come up around the thin part here on the bottom of the profile. Well, that's my new favorite way of doing that. Or suggesting other people do it at least, yeah. The thing we have to be really careful here is to not undercut this. The whole idea is to transfer this line, square it across to the other edge. So I want to overdo it a bit. Instead of undercutting, I want to, well, overcut, if you will. And in order to do that, I want the model to slope slightly towards the blade. And it's really easy to picture that when you are looking at the model and at the blade. If you hold it up and the blade is touching up here and open down here, that's the way you want it to be. You see, what I've laid off here are the spacing of the stations, and they don't need to project up through the model, we just need them across the bottom. So I referenced station 5, which was on here anyway, and then picked up the measurements to put on station 4, 3, and 2 up that way, and station 6 back here. So we have those lines, and I can come along with a little strip of paper, and at each of those stations I make a little mark at our red line, our center line that we're working to. And where this keel line, which I'll call it, intersects the station, that's the width at station 5. We can bring that up here and check. There's not going to be much to come off because these lifts were cut to shape, so they're nearly right anyway. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take these high spots off, these ridges off, until everything comes down to the valleys, and that's going to develop the shape of the model. So we're going to go from here to here to here and so on, but we're not going to look at it as connecting these in straight lines. It's not a connect the dots thing. We're going to be developing the shape of the model. We can go with a spoke shave. Notice I'm working diagonally here, where you can work in any motion you need to, but I find working diagonally will cut these lifts together quicker and start to develop the shape rather than working lengthways. So here it is, down to nearly a final sanding. There's a bit more time to finish all the sanding. This is where we would hold the model up and sight in that shear, make sure there's no tiny adjustments to make there. We like to see sharp edges along the top rather than rounded over. Making sure that all the scratch marks are out. As you're carving, if you have been using a rasp, there are likely to be scratch marks or coarse sandpaper marks in the wood that really won't show up until you put a first coat of finish on, and then there they are. So this has been sanded thoroughly by hand down to from 80 grit down through the grits to 220.